out as the coffee drink today. Good morning. Good morning, everyone. It's not snowing.
Good morning.
My name is Guy Cotton with the Starters Foundation.
Whoops, excuse me.
Wednesday Morning Roundtable. We want to welcome you to this November. Before we start, we have one presentation for our panel. Before we really do start, I saw her here. There is one member of our
Here I am.
if you have gone to your local stores around town, you might see that she is a cover woman for Section 4. Recognize one of our own.
Thank you very much.
We're going to talk a little bit about poverty over the next 45 minutes. But before we do, we traditionally in December asked representatives from Warm Children to come forward and talk about their program. We decided that we would do this earlier than later with the idea that we still need to raise money for this program. And we're delighted to have with us a new member for the Wednesday Morning Roundtable, Bob Corsi, who is the new publisher of The Citizen. He has decided to jump in feet first on this whole idea of Warm the Children. And he's going to talk to you for a couple minutes before we start our panel about this program. Bob joins us from Ohio. He's been here for just about 45, 50 days, so he most likely is the newest employee in the city, one of the. And we're delighted to have him to talk to you a little bit about Warm the Children, how you can help out with this program. Rob, thank you.
You know, in sales, or in presentations, they all have the KISS concept, which is keep it simple. And my theory on that is it makes it real simple. So I'm driving over here this morning, and I get out to my truck, and I'm going, I'm standing in my hallway, and I'm trying to figure out what I'm going to put on. I just realized that I have 4 coats. And I was going, that's 4 more than the kids that we're trying to buy coats for. So, to put it in its simplest forms, we have forms in front of you for Warm the Children. I get 3 out at each table. If that's not enough, I'm more than happy to have you stop by the Citizen, or there's forms that we run in the paper all the time. Bottom line, you give me $25, I buy a coat. We had the Rotary is part of this, Cayuga County Action Committee is part of this. The 3 organizations, we donate all of our time, all of the administrative fees come out of our organization's pockets to make sure that this happens. So the dollar for dollar, this money goes directly to the kids. And what we've done is, in this past year, since I'm brand new and everybody else is kind of brand new on the committee, we sat there and we were throwing ideas out and everything like that. And it's really one of those situations where I've jumped into this because the more, obviously, kind of being one of the guiders of the boat, if you would, it's exciting for me because I like to make sure that my money goes to someplace good. And I went to JCPenney's and watched the families come in and buy. And if I could, I would have said, had a huge presentation with pictures of a little girl that was there and had Dora the Explorer jacket on that you could tell was probably about 6 or 7 years old. And I was thinking to myself, she went up and she got these big wide eyes, and she got to pick her own jacket up. And if that doesn't make but the bad part about it is we had over 500 kids apply for the program this year. We had over $15,000 that we've already spent for the program. There's a couple of foundations that I've reached out to. We may have a few more dollars for this year that we're going to be able to donate for it. Everything that you donate today will go towards next year's kids, I promise. I'll be more than happy to show you the bank accounts or anything else like that. But what we're trying to do is obviously put a new one of these on every kid that we possibly can. 180 kids, that's a great start. 500 would have been a great accomplishment in my mind. So I'm hoping, and I was also thinking, well, you come to these things and you go, okay, give me $5, give me $10. You're all donating a ton of your time and your money already, to to make it relative, I went out to dinner last night, and I'm going to be donating personally the amount that I spent on that check. So for 2 people to eat over at the mall, Carousel Mall, for dinner last night, that's going to buy a kid a Coke. So if you could do that, that would make things really nice for everybody. So, and if you need me to, I'll come and cook at your house to make sure we're taking care of it. I'm not that good, but you know, so if you could, and if you can, please feel free to fill out the form. Just give it to me at the end of the meeting, or you can pass it up, whatever is easier for you. If there's not enough forms, like I said, please stop by the Citizen. We'll be more than happy to help you out at the front counter. To give you an idea too, congratulations to the Rotary. They did a great job this year with the pancake breakfast. That was $2,500 that we raised. There was over 300 kids, I think, or people that came through, right? So that was one of the biggest successes that we've had in a long time. I just found out yesterday the the Auburn Ale House, the day before Thanksgiving, if you go there and eat your lunch, or you possibly go out to have a cocktail after work that day, 20% of the proceeds from that day are going to be contributed to the Warm the Children campaign. And then, Karen, you said that there was another one.
Mason and Grant is doing their Thanksgiving run.
Okay, so that's going to be benefiting us too. So, you know, like I said, you know, there's tons of great charities out there. You know, I donate to as many that I can. But if you can help out with anything for the kids, I would really appreciate it. So, thank you for your time.
Thanks, Rob. And we should say that this now goes to coats, it's mittens, gloves, boots, and hats, so as well. So just want to make that known as well. I want to turn now to today's discussion. You know, right now we're talking a lot about 50th anniversaries since August, since the March on Washington, and obviously this Friday. But soon we'll be hearing news stories about the war on poverty. Believe it or not, it's been 50 years since Ms. Johnson talked about it in Congress. We have not wiped out poverty by far in this country, though we have talked about it over and over, and different administrations have come up with different plans. It pops up locally every now and then. It came up during the budget hearings for the city of Auburn about the number of people in poverty. It pops up when we hear about the school reduced and free lunches, but we don't really have a great discussion about it. So the Wednesday Morning Roundtable has been talking about this subject for a while, and decided that we would put a panel together to talk about poverty. And we thought there would be nobody better to lead this than our superintendent of school, Constance Evelyn, who has been talking about this since the day she got here, and the need for this community to really deal with the issues of poverty that really goes to how we bring up our children in our community. So she's put a group together to talk over the next 45 minutes about poverty. We'll get you out at 9 o'clock, but I'd like to introduce the superintendent of schools for this panel.
Good morning, everyone. As Guy said, I'm Constance Evelyn. I'm very proud to serve this community as the superintendent of schools. The focus of today's roundtable is how our community addresses poverty, and we have asked representatives from our local service agencies to share the work that they facilitate in regards to this growing epidemic, not only in our community, but across the nation. This morning, we will challenge ourselves to explore some of the more typical myths associated with persons living in poverty, and learn how these agencies are leveraging their work to support and assist persons living in this county below the poverty line. Our panelist members include Lori Piccolo, who's sitting closest to me at my right, who is the Executive Director of the Cayuga Seneca Community Action Agency. She's a graduate of Syracuse University School of Social Work and currently serves on the Auburn Housing Development Corporation Board of Directors, the Auburn Homeless Task Force Executive Committee, and the New York State Community Action Association Board of Directors. Sitting to her right is Sandy Gilliland. She has been employed by Cayuga County Health and Human Services since 1983 and has been their Director of Temporary Assistance since 1997, Her responsibilities include the administration and supervision of the intake unit, all employment participation programs, the home energy or heat program, and all cash assistance programs, including applications for emergency benefits such as temporary housing for the homeless. And before you applaud for Sandy, I do have to mention that today is her last day after 31 years of serving the county, and she is going to retire. James Breslin is our next panelist. He has been employed with the Auburn Rescue Mission since 2007. He's currently the Director of Program Services for Auburn and has implemented many new homeless programs in 4 different cities, including Auburn, Binghamton, Ithaca, and Syracuse. He's a veteran, having served in the United States Army Reserves from 1993 to 97, and earned his Juris Doctorate from Oklahoma School of Law in December of 1999. Christina is our panelist sitting at the end there. She's been employed by the Chapel House as their executive director since February 2012. Her prior work includes Cayuga County Child Protective Services investigator and 5 years of case management working with runaway and homeless youth and pregnant and parenting teenagers at the Salvation Army in the Syracuse area. Christina has a bachelor's degree from SUNY Brockport and a master's degree from Cayuga College in management. She has completed her action research project, garnering a master's degree on the topic of homelessness in Cayuga County, and has been actively involved in the homeless task force for the past 2 years. So I would ask, starting with Lori, if each of you would please begin by briefly sharing the work that you are doing within your respective organizations as it relates to addressing poverty in our community.
As Guy mentioned, 2014 is the 50th anniversary of the Economic Opportunity Act, also known as the War on Poverty. That piece of legislation allowed for the creation of the Head Start program and community action agencies. The Cayuga Seneca Community Action Agency has over 15 programs in 2 counties, including Head Start, domestic violence, weatherization, energy services, emergency housing, food pantry, healthy families, and the health benefits exchange. Our mission is to respectfully assist people to achieve and sustain self-sufficiency through direct services, education, and community partnerships. We are a $6.5 million agency and employ approximately 125 people.
My whole day is focused on helping people such as the ones we're here to discuss today. We have currently about 700 cases open for families and single individuals in Cayuga County living at or below 100% of the poverty level. On a monthly basis, we see approximately 200 other families or single people who, for one reason or another, have either a temporary need or an ongoing need. We spend a lot of time meeting with our community partners, trying to provide finances so that the folks that come to see us have a roof over their heads, have food to eat to bring home to their children. I would imagine that on homelessness alone, we spend approximately $30,000 to $50,000 every month, just in direct services to those that need temporary housing.
The Rescue Mission Family Transitions Program started in July 2011 with 4 families. Currently, we're working with 53 families and more than 126 children. As you know, there's no emergency shelter for women or families. We have an emergency shelter for men, but on a night like this, they go to the Department of Social Services 3rd floor, and if they can't get in, hopefully they have friends or family or some sort of alternative. It's a tremendous number of kids and the opportunities and struggles and challenges they have to overcome. It's a growing problem, but my friends in social services tell me there's less and less stay with them as long as they want continued services. We have over a 91% housing placement rate, and currently 76% of those families are continuing to receive supportive services. All but one of our families we worked with has experienced some sort of trauma. By that I mean domestic violence, sexual abuse, even our children. So in a nutshell, there's many faces of poverty and homelessness. We also chair the homeless task force for the city. Year to date, we have about 700 unique homeless individuals, counting our programs for social services. The highest number we've ever reported since we've been doing this in 2002 was 475. So, it's an increasing problem, and we're looking forward to discussing what some of the solutions are.
I'm Christina Thornton. I'm the director at Chapel House. Our main focus is on men. We have a 19-bed emergency homeless shelter that much of the year is at capacity. Sometimes we go a little bit over, especially on cold nights like we are having now. Some of the things that we provide for our guys is a 90-day stay. We provide case management. We work on them with budgeting money. We provide clothing, hygiene products, anything they need to get themselves, back on their feet and up and going. I think our biggest thing that we're noticing is, that we've had a very large increase in the amount of men utilizing our service every year. This year alone, we've already surpassed those that we served last year. Our main focus right now is to, get them moved along. We see a lot of guys that come in that are working. It's not people that aren't working, it's people that have very limited income. We have people on Social Security disability, SSI, veterans pensions, things like that, that just the housing isn't affordable, which makes it difficult, and that's how they end up at the shelter. We're coming up on our 6-year anniversary, and probably by January, we'll be serving our 1,000th person.
Thank you. I know that in the work that many of you do, that you have access to the national statistics around poverty. But specifically, can you talk about who's living in poverty in Cayuga County and whether or not you see any recurring patterns to the trends as to the reasons why they're living in poverty within our community?
Well, I brought some statistics. I don't know if you want me to just jump in with that. This gives you, I think, a picture of the people who are probably at the most lowest level of poverty, because there are many people in need or at or below poverty who choose not to come in for assistance for one reason or another, and somehow, I don't know how, are managing out there. As I said, we have about 700 cases open right now. 60% of those cases are families, and it's over 1,500 people. The other 40% are single individuals, and people just receiving food stamps are now the SNAP program. There are about 5,000 families in Cayuga County receiving SNAP benefits on a monthly basis. Of those single people that have an open case with us, only about 1/3 of them are able to work. The remainder are disabled, work limited, mental health issues, a lot of mental health issues, a lot of substance abuse issues, people in treatment, which is a long-term and sometimes recurring need for folks. We have people who are, for many reasons, just unable to work, and one of the things we try to do is help them get the treatment that they need in order to become self-sufficient. To us, a success is closing a case and seeing somebody move on to maybe the case management that James's people can supply. Of the families that we serve, 50% of them have only one parent. Only 5% of those cases have 2 parents in the household. I have to say that I think that is one of the factors affecting the poverty that our children are in. The remaining 45% of those family cases are for children only. That means that their parent may be in the household but is in receipt of SSI, so we don't look at that income. Or maybe they're living with a grandparent, an aunt, an uncle, maybe it's an alternative to foster care. Again, you're talking about a child whose life has already had some upheaval in it, and there's someone trying to stabilize it. And again, that of course affects their schooling and the rest of their life. And as I said, about 200 people apply for public assistance every month. In the first 3 months of this year, we saw 460 people come through our doors that were looking for some form of public assistance, cash assistance. And of those 460, 100 were either homeless or they were in danger of losing their housing. So I think that's a very telling picture of perhaps a group of people in our community that we don't often think of, or that maybe we don't think of in quite enough terms. These are people who have no resources, no family out there to help, can't work perhaps because they don't have a decent daycare situation. Some of our old ways of living have changed, of the generational living in one household perhaps, and a grandparent available to provide childcare so the parents can work. Many, many changes in the way the world has developed have affected poverty, in my opinion.
I know that James and I had a conversation yesterday, and I'd like you to just talk a little bit about some of the things we discussed relative to the particular group that really seems to be struggling and has a limited amount of support.
Just want to say homelessness and poverty rob people of hope, dignity, and the opportunity to fulfill their God-given potential. Last year, there was 46.5 million Americans living in poverty. That's up from 33 million people in the year 2000. The group that's most affected in poverty are children. 16.1 million children were living in poverty last year. That's almost 22% of all the children in the United States. That's what we're seeing in our program, Family Transitions Program. And a lot of the things that we're seeing, one of the things that Constance and I talked about is you can count on one hand the adults in our program that even have a GED. And many of the reasons that they didn't finish school, because again, they were victims of physical or sexual abuse, and that impacted their educational opportunities. There's 1 out of 6 people face hunger in our country. And said all those telling statistics. One of the things that Constance and I were talking about locally, when you look at the statistics on American Fact Find, the city of Auburn, if you're a woman with a child under the age of 5, 68% of all women with a child under the age of 5 that are unmarried are in poverty. 68%. Just to give you some context, the rest of the state, 42%. Syracuse, 5%. So if you're a single mom, if I was going to be in high school, I want to guarantee that you can be in poverty. Start out with not finishing your education and having a child. And then it gets to this point. I mean, Sandy, when I first came to the community, we were talking something. There's certain names that social services that's generational. There's this cycle of poverty, and it's reoccurring, this pattern of trauma and abuse, lack of education, and job opportunities. And one of the things that Constance and I were talking about is, there's a lot of challenges kids face, and feeling, you don't have a steady place to live, how you get your school done. And we were talking about, we talked about bullying, maybe I had glasses, maybe somebody is a little overweight, maybe has a funny name. One of the things that we were starting to talk about, but we have a large number of biracial children, and I mentioned that in our program. Constance threw out a really big number that's all across the school district. So there's these identity issues as well. And so for us, one of the things that we're trying to do with our Family Transitions Program is help equip our moms and literacy, all the other things that go with it, basic life skills. I see Susan out there, and I talked to her at a women's luncheon over this summer. And I know for myself, I've had good people, whether it's a teacher, somebody at church, somebody in the neighborhood, that will look out for you. And I don't know where it would be if I didn't have those people. And, a lot of our moms would say that when they've been in trouble, there's programs designed that they're there to help. But as soon as they start doing well, the help goes away. So one of the things that we worked with the social services and the housing authority was designed it so when the moms and the kids start doing well, that we can stay with them. And I shared a story with Constance. Lee Sullivan, who's our program manager, often goes to school on the first day to introduce herself to the teachers and principal as an early warning system. Because if mom or dad didn't finish school, sometimes the emphasis on education isn't there. So if the kid misses school, we get a call from the school to let us know, so-and-so didn't go to class. And last summer, a number of our kids got all kinds of awards. And one little girl named Isabella was the top student in 5 of her classes. And, some of the teachers asked, well, the year before, she wasn't doing too well. The year before, she didn't have stable housing, and just the difference that having housing and support around you.
I don't know if Christina or Lori want to comment on the question around who's living with poverty and what are the primary causes of it.
Definitely, even though we serve only men at Chapel House, we have a wide variety of, people and the circumstances that led them there. We had our youngest client we served this past year was an 18-year-old high school student who was on track to graduate. He stayed with us for probably about 2 months, and we were able to get him into a program that was better to finish school and things like that. Our oldest person that we had in the program was a 72-year-old Army veteran. So there's really, those are like the two ends of the spectrum. We definitely see a lot of people coming in that have a lot of mental health conditions. With more veterans coming in this past year, a lot of them are coming back with a lot of the PTSD and other types of things that are kind of preventing them from re-entering the workforce, those that are still at that age where they would. We have had, in the last year, 48% of our clients have some type of disability, whether it be mental health, a physical disability, or drug and alcohol addiction. And that is something that we're seeing a lot more of. So.
I agree with James and the rest of the panel. There is, anybody can reside in poverty or be financially insecure. And it could be for just a brief moment in your life. It could be for a year or two. What we're seeing more so are individuals that need our assistance for just a brief period of time. They may have been working due to a factory closing in town, a business closing, both mom and dad losing a job, single parents, and the mom losing her job, need assistance with our food pantry, heating assistance. Some of the things that we are currently seeing, and Sandy could answer this more so, and even with the elderly, the HEAP program, there haven't been funds for the HEAP program, the heating assistance program this year. Those funds have been cut. So when an individual needs some assistance with that, they may have resources. Those resources do not allow them to qualify for some of the heating assistance programs or some additional funding that they may qualify for with the county for furnace replacement. Because they have those resources available, the county may require them to relinquish their resources or they put a lien against some of their resources. So that in turn, at times, creates individuals to not want to save. So we see that at times when we're encouraging individuals to create a financial savings plan. they may have the mindset of, why should I save, then when I do need that little bit of help, I can't receive it, because last time I needed a little bit of help in a pinch, I couldn't get it because I had money. So they fall in that catch-22 at times as well. But we are seeing more of a need for that immediate help, and then those folks kind of go away. So it's not the long-term help that we're seeing. More of an emergency housing, emergency food. We're seeing a lot more of that emergency need.
So part of the reason that we put this panel together today was really to try to dispel some of the myths that are existent in our country, undisputedly one of the world's wealthiest nations, regarding poverty. Some of them include, even if you're poor in the United States, you do pretty well. No one goes hungry in America. Poverty has little lasting impact on children. So Lori's comments are a good segue to really delving into what impacts have some of the actions of the federal and state governments had on your organization's ability to assist families that are living in poverty. If you could go into detail about that, would be very helpful.
Well, with welfare reform came a need for our agency to create new programs at the time, such as Hire for Attire, that provided free business clothing for job interviews, essentials for employment, job training, and Wheels to Work that provided financial assistance for individuals that qualified for a low-interest loan. We partnered with a bank. They qualified for a loan through the bank and monies through our agency, and that allowed a low-interest loan for a vehicle. They had to have a job, had to have a child, and had to have good credit. And at least that provided them transportation to and from employment. Unfortunately, that program ended. We are in negotiations with another bank to bring that program back because there is such a need for that at this time. And then also 10 years ago, with our Head Start program, we had a home-based model where we had home visiting, where the teachers and home visitors went into the schools, went into the homes and provided educational services and met with the mothers at the homes. With welfare reform, moms went to work and the 4-year-olds came into school. So now we have 4-year-olds at Head Start all day long.
Welfare reform came into effect in pretty much 1997, which is when I became the director of temporary assistance. And it was a time of a lot of funding being available. It was a time of a good economy locally, a lot of jobs available. It was an emphasis on not staying in a silo, but in reaching out to our community partners, to identifying what the needs of the community were, and then trying to create programs and partnerships that would allow us to meet those needs. And our goal was to, again, close a case, help somebody become self-sufficient. We partnered a lot with your agency, the Community Action Agency. At that time, we didn't have the rescue mission or a shelter. But what we did was we created programs that some worked, some didn't. We provided legal help for women in need of leaving perhaps a spouse, obtaining child support. We had an additional program for transportation, which we continue to this day with a different source of funding. We worked with the home employment agencies. We provided the CNA training, the nurses aid training. We saw that, as you do, as a good career ladder, and we have seen some lasting benefits. We did a yearly snapshot of the people whose cases closed due to employment, and over a period of about 5 years when I did that, less than needed to come back in for any kind of assistance. So what I'm saying is we saw a lot of successes with that. The only thing that was really negative is that that funding was all for folks with families with children. There still is a lack of funding for the single individuals who are so in need in our community. If you're on public assistance and you're a single individual, you're going to receive $362 a month to live on. I don't know any place that you can really rent and have any sort of quality of life for that kind of money. So there is a real need for something to help the single individuals that are 71% of every dollar we spend on them is a local dollar. So there's really a need for ongoing help for that segment of the population, because many of those are the fathers, in most cases, fathers, not mothers, of children who are in poverty themselves. So it all relates.
I'm not going to add to Sandy's spoken on welfare reform, but in terms of myths that people don't go hungry, again, 1 out of 6 people in this country experience hunger. We spent $78 billion on food stamps last year, and that's double what it was in December 2007. There's a lot of myths that a lot of people don't want to work. There's actually people that, I know on the panel, that left, they had disability, they left, they gave up their benefits prematurely to take a low job that puts pressure on them. And the lack of safe, affordable housing in the community is a challenge. Cayuga County as a whole is above the national average in terms of home ownership, but the city, the national average of people that rent is about 35%. In the city, it's closer to 52%. And as a result, there's a lack of supply, and landlords can get for very, say, modest quality a lot more. And as Sandy said, you're not going to find a place to live on for $362, and that's actually since they got a raise. I mean, it used to be less. And so, some of the things that we're trying to do, I see Selvig back there, home sites, applying for a tax credit grant to try to create 35 new one-bedroom apartments with supportive services. The Housing Authority is looking into a state grant to create 28 new housing units for families, 14 3-bedrooms, 10 2-bedrooms, and 4 single ones. And it's just, these stereotypes when you think of someone who's homeless or that's in poverty, I always like say, who are they? Fathers, mothers, sons and daughters, brothers and sisters, friends and loved ones, people that served in our country in the military. In short, they have a connection to somebody else in this community. And, one of the great things of Auburn is that even though that we have many of the problems of larger cities, that we're small enough to sit around a table and come up with some solutions. And it's that for more times than not, somebody at that table has a personal connection to that person. And I think this is the response. I mean, last Thursday, the City of Auburn Planning Department was helping homeless folks. 3 churches I got calls from were helping homeless families. Everybody from the deputy director to Sandy and all our frontline staff are working with people, in addition to good work that Lord's people and Chapel House did. And there was at least 3 formerly homeless people themselves that were advocating for people down at the Department of Social Services. So we're a very generous community, and again, there's many faces, and I just stress that children are disproportionately impacted by poverty and homelessness nationally.
Well, there's not too much, we've only been around for 6 years, so all the welfare we've been on is already pretty much in place when we got started, but I kind of touch a little bit on what Sandy had to say with the singles. I mean, $362. We have a lot of guys that end up sharing apartments. We're fortunate enough to have a couple landlords in the community that work really well with us, where we can put a couple guys in there, we'll furnish the apartment. If things don't work out, we'll take somebody back at the shelter and send someone new. But these guys, they don't find apartments for $362. It's just not possible. The ones that do work, You know, many of them are working, 12 to 15 hours a week at minimum wage, and that's enough that they don't get public assistance at that point. So there they are trying to live on $400 a month. Many of them have child support. Many of them, really the majority of their money goes to child support because they're making so little and they may have arrears and things like that, so that they're paying more at this point. It makes it really difficult for our guys to get back on their feet and really be able to function without coming back to the shelter. I can say we have a good number of our clients that we see back at the shelter again within a year. I think last year the number out of 174 clients that we served in 2012, we had 28 return within a year. So, obviously that's a number we're trying to work on. We're trying to do a little bit more work with them before they leave. But the bottom line is the affordable housing just isn't there for these guys, unless they're able to pick up a couple jobs, which some of them do. But that's where we're at.
Again, another good segue in terms of some of the other statistics that we'll share today. In 2012, the National Center on Family Homelessness reported that more than 1.6 million of the nation's children go to sleep without a home each year. Homeless children experience a lack of safety, comfort, privacy, and reassuring routines, include the adequate health care and interrupted schooling. Their impaired ability to sustain relationships and a limited sense of community and other factors combine to create life-altering experiences that inflict profound and lasting scars. Can you talk a little bit about your organization's work to address homelessness resulting from poverty in our community? And perhaps, because some of you have already touched on that, can you talk a little bit about all of those conditions that are resulting from children experiencing long-term homelessness, lack of sense of community? Are there programs that your agencies are involved in to address the lasting impacts that homelessness has on young children in particular?
Well, never being shy, I will have to say, people sitting at this table with me are the people that we reach out to and have created programs and done some work in order to help these children. We often see children in a homeless situation or in danger of homelessness because the rent's unpaid, they're pending an eviction. There's domestic violence, they have to go into a shelter. And those children may already also have some mental health issues of their own. So you take a child like that and put them in a hotel room for 3 weeks while everybody figures out how to get back and forth to school and how to look for an apartment and how to meet the requirements to keep their public assistance. And it really requires the partnership of these other agencies to bring those pieces together. So that's really what we do, is we reach out to others to help with that. We provide some finances, but they're the ones out there in the field working with families.
A lot of our families, they're headed by a single parent, and when they're at risk, if they have life-controlling issues, so you say addiction issues, in terms of the safety issues, if mom's drinking or using drugs, there's adults that they don't really know that have access to the children. If our kids either physically or sexually abuse them, but when they do get help, when they lose their house and they go and get hotels, you can imagine being a mom with 4 kids at the Super 8 or the Days Inn. Kids aren't outside playing in the driveway, and one of the things that the program first opened was just watching the kids interact with other kids. It's just, you take things for granted, being able to go outside and play. We've had kids that literally, due to the poverty, that they never had their individual birthdays recognized. Around Christmas, they have a group present for the kids. And Walmart gave us a bunch of bikes, and saw a bunch of kids get their first bike. It just blows you away. There's a lot of basic things from any of our childhoods that you might just take for granted now when they went back to school, they had something to say, that, hey, look, we have this positive mind. So there's a lot of things there, and Lee, who runs our program, likes to say, even though our families are housed, they're still hurting, and that process of healing takes many, many, many years. I'm sure everybody in this room has had somebody affected by drugs or alcohol illness or domestic violence, and it's a process. And it's not just the abuse; it's who's the abusers. More than 90% of the time, it's somebody you know and trust. And the one thing that all our families, and especially children, know, that we will protect them. There's people, there's families that literally have burned their bridges with every other entity. And the reason we stay with them is they're all we got. There was one young mother that was having, she was going to labor at 27 weeks. She called Lee. That's all she had. And he stayed in the hospital with her for 4 days. Didn't go home. Didn't have change of clothes now. The baby was born at just over 3 pounds at 30 weeks. Was in the hospital for another 6 weeks. Today he's at 8 pounds. It's things like that. It's like I always say that there's a lot of smart people in this room and on this panel. Before you can show somebody how much you know, you have to show how much you care. And it's about building relationships, and that's ultimately what will lead to change.
When I came to Auburn in doing the research regarding the school district, I recognized that Auburn is experiencing, as a school district, in terms of our enrollment, the highest rate of poverty that we've seen ever for the Auburn and Lawrence City School District. Right now, our average rate of poverty is 52%. When you look at individual schools, that percentage can go as high as 90. And so, as a school district, it's important to understand that when the demographics are shifting, that you have to think differently, and you have to do some things differently to ensure that there's something in it for everyone, and that the policies that you're creating encourage the success that you are trying to meet. And so we know, we've heard from our panel, that poverty does influence the rate of transiency for families, either losing their homes because they can't afford to pay the rent, or they're running from paying the rent because they're about to be evicted. And so relative to that, some of the things that I'm going to talk about, and I hope to have the panelists join me, are some of the things that we've shifted in the school district to respond to the changing demographics so that we can, and our students and families can meet with more success. So one of the things includes, relative to the rate of transiency, is changing our policy around busing. In the past, probably up to a year and a half ago, if a student moved during the school year, we did not bus anymore. And so that responsibility really fell to the parent if they were living outside of the catchment area. So we've shifted that with the cooperation of the Board of Education so that that relative service, what we call an auxiliary service at a school district, continues. Right now, we're looking at a summer school model. Typical summer school models, and really this summer school model has probably existed in the United States of America for at least 60 years. Right, so the model includes these very, very stringent attendance policies. And so if you're a person living in poverty, a young child, and we say to you, after 3 absences, you fail. First of all, you might not even be encouraged to sign up for summer school because you know you're going to have transportation issues. You know that you have more responsibilities than your average 13-year-old. Perhaps you have to care for your younger brothers and sisters. Perhaps you're putting mom back together on occasion. And so you're either not going to sign up or you're not going to meet the requirement. So we are looking at shifting that model, not just in Auburn, but hopefully regionally, so that we can create a blended opportunity for students to be able to participate in a more meaningful way, and in a way, again, that provides an opportunity for all to be successful. So that model will include some online learning pieces. Of course, teachers will be there to assist students, but they will really be able to work at their own pace. And so when you sign up, hopefully again we're able to implement this model, we're not saying to you at the outset, you have to sit here for 6 weeks. It will be a different model. And again, students will be able to complete their summer school requirements in the time that is really dictated by their effort. So those are just a couple of the things that we're looking at the school district. I don't know if you can talk about some things that are on the horizon in your organizations and perhaps some success rates with existing programs that you've observed.
I can just answer to your summer school model in relation to our Head Start program. We struggle as well with our Head Start, early Head Start program in relation to attendance. And again, it falls upon single parents, poverty, attendance. It's summer. One student is off, or one child is off from school, the other one has to go to Head Start. It's not an emphasis of getting the child to school. It's a struggle to get the child to school. So I can relate to the difficulty of just having, having to get a child to school. The emphasis of the summer school model of the 3 absences and you fail, and on top of residing in poverty. So I can see, and just listening to you talk about the opportunity for online classes for the older students, I think that's a wonderful opportunity. I hope it works, and I hope it succeeds, and students succeeds, and it helps them to graduate. I think that's wonderful. As far as we're always looking for new programming. That was your question, right? New programming. Yeah, as I got sidetracked, sorry. We're just always looking for new programming. Some of the programming that we're looking at now, we're grant funded. So we're always looking at grants. We're looking at expanding for our food pantry. We're looking at more so for hunger relief. There's some grants for that. Domestic violence. There's high demand for funding for domestic violence. As you can see from just reading the newspaper, the incidents of domestic violence are increasing. There's been more homicides. The funding for that program, there's not much funding. Our residential funding comes from the county, as well as our non-residential, that those programs are funded from the county. So we need funding for that program, but we're always looking for new programming, and it's based mostly on the needs of the community.
Well, thank you very much. I see that we're getting close to our ending time, and so just maybe 60 seconds from the rest of the panelists in terms of closing remarks you'd like to make.
I just want to say that it has been really, over the last few years, great to reach out more and partner more with folks. We've done some job shadowing so that we're better able to deploy the money that we're given in ways that I think provide more lasting help and more encouragement for the families out there in our community.
I just like to say 2 of the great joys of my life. When I started in human services, a brief segue into the legal field. I had hair. And 2 of the great joys, yes it did. Yes, 2 of the great joys of my life is when someone gets the keys to their own place and when they get a job. The dignity that goes with that, you can't put into words. It just washes over them. And how they perceive themselves and how the people closest to them and just people in this room. It's very important. And I know we've talked about a lot of all these challenges, but there's been a lot of successes. And the work, what we do matters. What we do each and every day or not do each and every day matters. The work that Sandy's done for 31 years matters.
attend. You know, and we're looking at trying to follow up with them after they leave. We do have some, which is, it's always good to see. We have some guys that move on that, you know, we help them along the way, and they want to come back and volunteer their time at Chapel House, and they really end up being some of our best volunteers, because they can relate to the guys. They can say, I've been there, I know exactly what you're going through, and, you know, we're just always looking for more volunteers to come in and spend some time, you know, with our guys and share any knowledge or insight that you might have. We have a pretty good group of guys most of the time